They told him his hands were made for serving coffee, not for firing guns. They gave him an apron, not a weapon. In the United States Navy of 1941, the role of a black man was to be a servant, a ghost in the machine, invisible. But on the morning of December 7th, as the sky over Pearl Harbor rained fire and steel, as the mightiest battleships of the U.S. fleet were torn apart, this one man, a cook with no combat training, would make a choice. He would drop his laundry basket, pick up a .50 caliber machine gun, and in the opening moments of America's war, he would teach the world a lesson in what it truly means to be a warrior. To understand the miracle that was Dorie Miller, you must first understand the prison he served in. The United States Navy on the eve of World War II was not just a military branch, it was a deeply entrenched bastion of white supremacy, arguably the most racist of all the armed services. While the Army at least had a long, if complicated, history of all-black combat regiments, the Navy had systematically purged African Americans from all but its most menial and degrading roles. Since the end of World War I, the Navy's official policy was that black men could only enlist in one branch, the messman's branch. This was a euphemism. It meant they were servants. They were the cooks, the valets, the stewards, the officers' personal attendants. Their world was the galley and the officers' quarters. Their duties were to make the beds, shine the shoes, serve the meals, and clean the latrines for the white officers and sailors. They were denied any opportunity for combat training. They were forbidden from learning to fire the ship's massive cannons, from operating the complex machinery in the engine rooms, from even touching the anti-aircraft guns that lined the decks. They wore the uniform of the U.S. Navy, but they were, in a very real sense, a servant class, a domestic staff afloat on a sea of institutional bigotry. The psychological toll of this role was immense. These were men who had enlisted out of patriotism, a desire for adventure, or a search for a better life than the crushing poverty of Jim Crow America. Instead, they found themselves in a floating plantation, a system designed to remind them every single day of their supposed inferiority. They were a part of the Navy, but they were never truly of it. They were ghosts in the machine, their presence essential but their humanity invisible to the men they served. It was into this rigid, suffocating world that Dorie Miller stepped in 1939. He was not a man born to be a servant. He was a product of rural Texas, the son of sharecroppers. He was a big man, over 6 feet tall and built like a linebacker, a star fullback on his high school football team. He was a man of immense physical strength and quiet confidence. He had joined the Navy looking for a way to see the world and support his family. He, like so many others, was funneled directly into the messman's branch. He was assigned to the USS West Virginia, a massive, state-of-the-art battleship, one of the crown jewels of the Pacific Fleet. The ship was a floating city, a symbol of American power and technological might. But for Dorie Miller, it was a city where he was confined to the servants' quarters. His daily routine was one of monotony and servitude. Waking before dawn to prepare breakfast, serving meals in the officer's wardroom, cleaning, and doing laundry. But even in this constrained environment, Miller's natural strength and leadership could not be completely suppressed. He found an outlet for his competitive spirit in the ship's boxing tournaments. He was a natural. His size, his power, and his quiet determination made him a formidable opponent. He quickly rose through the ranks, eventually becoming the West Virginia's heavyweight boxing champion. It was a small, almost trivial achievement in the grand scheme of a battleship's life. But it was a space where he could be something more than a messman. In the ring, he was not a servant, he was a champion. It was a glimpse of the warrior spirit that the Navy was determined to ignore, a spirit that was lying dormant, waiting for its moment. As 1941 drew to a close, the USS West Virginia was moored at a place that felt like paradise, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. It was part of the formidable line of battleships known as Battleship Row, a powerful deterrent meant to keep the ambitious Japanese Empire in check. For the sailors, life was good. The work was routine, the weather was beautiful, and the threat of war seemed a million miles away. On the evening of December 6th, a Saturday, the mood was relaxed. Men went ashore, movies were shown on deck, and the fleet settled in for another peaceful weekend in the Pacific. Dorie Miller, his duties for the day done, likely looked out at the tranquil harbor, at the 7 other massive battleships resting at anchor alongside his own, and felt a sense of security, of a world in order. He had no idea that he was sleeping at the epicenter of a historical earthquake, and that in just a few short hours, his entire world, and the world itself, would be engulfed in flames. The morning of Sunday, December 7th, 1941, dawned bright and clear over Pearl Harbor. It was just before 8 a.m., a time of quiet routine across the fleet. On the deck of the USS West Virginia, sailors were preparing for the morning color guard ceremony. In the galley, Dorie Miller was beginning his daily duties, collecting laundry. The peaceful, tropical morning was shattered by a sound that no one was prepared for: the deafening roar of low-flying aircraft and the thunderous, earth-shaking boom of explosions. The first wave of Japanese dive bombers and torpedo planes screamed out of the sky, their targets the neat, sleeping line of American battleships. The attack was a masterpiece of surprise and brutal efficiency. The USS West Virginia was one of the first and hardest hit. It was struck by at least 7 torpedoes in its port side, massive, crippling blows that ripped open its hull like a tin can. Almost immediately, another 2 armor-piercing bombs, dropped from high-altitude bombers, smashed through its deck. One failed to detonate, but the other exploded deep within the ship, rupturing steam lines and spreading a fire that began to consume the vessel from the inside out. The ship was dying. The deck buckled. A massive, uncontrolled fire raged amidships, its thick, black smoke pouring into the sky. The torpedo hits had caused catastrophic flooding, and the great battleship began to list heavily, its port side sinking rapidly into the oily waters of the harbor. Alarms blared, a chaotic, useless scream against the thunder of the ongoing attack. Men were being killed and wounded everywhere, victims of explosions, fires, and the strafing runs of the Japanese Zeros that swooped low over the decks. In the midst of this absolute hell, Dorie Miller was not a combatant. He was a mess attendant. His battle station, an anti-aircraft battery magazine amidships, had been obliterated by one of the first torpedo hits. But he did not panic. He did not try to save himself. He did what his duty required. He began to help. He made his way to the deck, a landscape of fire, smoke, and screaming men, and immediately began carrying wounded sailors to positions of relative safety, physically lifting them and moving them out of the path of the spreading fires. It was during this that he was ordered to the ship's bridge to assist the ship's commanding officer, Captain Mervyn Benyon. When Miller arrived, he found a scene of carnage. The bridge had taken a direct hit from a bomb fragment, and Captain Benyon was down, mortally wounded, a massive, gaping wound in his abdomen. The captain, in immense pain but still conscious, refused to be moved, attempting to command his dying ship. Dorie Miller, along with another officer, saw that the situation was hopeless. They ignored the captain's protests. In an act of immense strength and courage, under the constant threat of strafing fire and secondary explosions, Miller lifted his captain and carried him to a more sheltered spot, trying to move him out of the fire and smoke. It was a futile gesture. Captain Benyon would die shortly thereafter. But it was an act of profound, selfless heroism. Miller had done his duty to his captain, a man he had likely served breakfast to just hours before. But his most legendary act was yet to come. After moving the captain, Miller was ordered to help 2 other officers who were trying to man a pair of .50 caliber Browning anti-aircraft machine guns on the deck. The men who had been assigned to the guns were dead or wounded. The officers didn't know how to operate them. But Dorie Miller, the ship's heavyweight boxing champion, had watched the gun crews during drills. He was a man of keen observation and mechanical aptitude. As he helped the officers, he saw that the guns were still functional. What happened next was a moment that would become a legend. Dorie Miller, the messman who had never been trained to fire a weapon, who by the Navy's own racist logic was deemed unfit for combat, pushed the officers aside and took control of one of the machine guns. He had never fired one before in his life. But in the chaos and adrenaline of that moment, something instinctive took over. He figured it out. He began to lay down a furious, sustained barrage of fire at the Japanese planes that were still swarming the harbor. Imagine the sight: a large, powerful black man, in the simple white uniform of a mess attendant, standing on the deck of a burning, sinking battleship, single-handedly operating a heavy machine gun, its traces arcing into the sky, fighting back against the enemies of his country. He poured fire into the sky, tracking the swooping Japanese planes, his powerful frame absorbing the recoil of the heavy weapon. He fired until the ammunition was exhausted. He fired as the ship continued to sink beneath him. He only stopped when he was finally, directly ordered to abandon the ship. Eyewitnesses to his actions were in awe. They saw a man who, in the face of unimaginable chaos and with no training whatsoever, had become a natural and effective warrior. In the aftermath, several sailors and officers would credit him with shooting down between 1 and 4 Japanese planes. While these claims are difficult to verify in the chaos of the battle, what is undeniable is that in a moment of supreme crisis, When many trained combat sailors were in shock or disarray, this untrained cook had stood his ground and fought back with a courage and a skill that was nothing short of miraculous. As the order to abandon ship was finally given, Miller did not just save himself. He continued to help his fellow sailors, pulling wounded men from the fire and helping them into the water, away from the sinking wreck of the West Virginia. He was one of the last men to leave the ship. He swam through the oily, burning water to the shore, a survivor of one of the most devastating attacks in American history. In the space of a few short hours, the world had been turned upside down. And Dorie Miller, the quiet messman from Texas, had been transformed, by his own actions, into an American hero. In the chaotic, smoke-filled aftermath of the Pearl Harbor attack, the story of Dorie Miller's heroism should have been front-page news, a rare and inspiring tale of individual bravery in a day of national humiliation. He was, by all accounts, one of the first true heroes of World War II. But the United States Navy had a problem. Their hero was black. And in the segregated, deeply prejudiced world of the 1940s military, this was a truth that the institution was not prepared to celebrate. The Navy's initial response was not to honor Miller, but to bury his story. The first official communique from Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox, detailing the events of December 7th, made a vague and anonymous reference to the heroism of one man. It mentioned that an unnamed Negro messman had helped his dying captain and then had manned a machine gun. That was it. No name. No details.
No celebration.
He was reduced to a racial category. His individuality and his specific acts of valor erased. To the Navy High Command, he was an inconvenient hero, a man whose courage directly contradicted their long-held, racist doctrine that black men were unfit for combat. To celebrate him would be to admit that their entire system of segregation was built on a lie. So, they chose silence. But the story was too powerful to be contained. The sailors and officers who had witnessed Miller's actions on the deck of the USS West Virginia told their stories. The rumor of the heroic black messman began to spread through the fleet and eventually back to the mainland. The Black Press, a network of powerful and influential African American newspapers, caught wind of the story and immediately understood its significance. For papers like the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, and the Baltimore Afro-American, this was not just a war story. It was a weapon in their ongoing Double V campaign. They launched a massive, coordinated journalistic investigation and a relentless public relations campaign to force the Navy to name their hero. They saw this as a pivotal moment. If they could force the government to acknowledge the heroism of this one black man, it would be a powerful blow against the entire system of segregation in the armed forces. The Pittsburgh Courier famously hired a white reporter to go to Pearl Harbor to investigate, believing, correctly, that he would have access that a black reporter would be denied. The campaign was brilliant and unrelenting. The newspapers published editorials, ran cartoons, and printed letters from citizens demanding that the unnamed Negro hero be identified and properly honored. They called him the first hero of the war, a potent and provocative title. The pressure was immense and it was public. The Navy, already reeling from the disaster of Pearl Harbor, found itself on the defensive, accused of a racist cover-up. They were fighting a public relations war that they were rapidly losing. Finally, after months of stonewalling, the Navy buckled under the pressure. On March 14, 1942, they officially identified the hero as Dorie Miller, Mess Attendant Second Class. The victory for the Black Press was enormous. They had forced the hand of the most powerful military institution in the world. Now, they began their second campaign, to ensure that Miller received the nation's highest award for valor, the Medal of Honor. The argument for it was overwhelming. Miller's actions, risking his life to save his captain, and then, with no training, manning a machine gun to defend his ship, were the very definition of valor in action, above and beyond the call of duty. But once again, the Navy resisted. The idea of awarding the Medal of Honor, a symbol of ultimate martial virtue, to a black messman was a bridge too far for the prejudiced command structure of 1942. They were willing to acknowledge his bravery, but not to place him in the same pantheon as the nation's greatest white heroes. Instead, a compromise was reached. On May 27, 1942, aboard the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise at Pearl Harbor, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, personally awarded Dorie Miller the Navy Cross. It was the Navy's second highest honor, a medal of profound distinction. And it was a historic moment. Dorie Miller became the first African American to receive the Navy Cross in World War II. The ceremony was a major media event. Miller, standing tall and proud in his dress uniform, was a powerful symbol. The quiet cook from Texas was now, officially, a national hero. His image was everywhere. He became the face of a national war bond tour. A poster was created featuring his portrait, with a powerful tagline above and beyond the call of duty. It was used to inspire Americans, both black and white, to support the war effort. He was a celebrity, a symbol of a nation, however reluctantly, beginning to acknowledge the contributions of all its citizens. He was brought back to the United States and sent on a 2-month tour, speaking at rallies, visiting factories, and shaking hands with politicians. He was a quiet, humble man, unaccustomed to the spotlight, but he understood the importance of his role. He was not just Dorie Miller. He was a symbol of the hopes and aspirations of 13 million African Americans. But the story of Dorie Miller is a story of profound and tragic irony. After the bond tour was over, after the speeches were done and the crowd had gone home, the Navy had to decide what to do with their inconvenient hero. Had his proven valor, his officially recognized heroism, changed their view of what a black man could be? Would they now send him to gunnery school, make him the combat sailor he had proven himself to be? The answer was a resounding and heartbreaking no. The institution was more powerful than the man. Dorie Miller, the hero of Pearl Harbor, was promoted to mess attendant first class and sent back to the galley. The hero who had manned a machine gun was sent back to the kitchen. The war for Dorie Miller was far from over. The Navy's decision to send Dorie Miller back to the role of a messman was a stunning and deeply cynical act. It was a clear and unambiguous message. A black man, no matter how heroic, no matter how decorated, was still, in the eyes of the institution, fit only for servitude. His moment of fame had been a useful piece of wartime propaganda, a way to boost morale and encourage black enlistment. But once that purpose had been served, the system snapped back into its old, rigid, racist form. The hero was put back in his place. For Dorie Miller, this must have been a period of profound disillusionment. He had been celebrated by the nation, his face plastered on posters, his bravery praised by admirals and politicians. He had seen, for a brief, shining moment, the possibility of a different kind of America, a different kind of military, one where a man was judged by his courage, not his color. And now, he was once again serving meals, clearing tables, and living the life of a glorified waiter. The Navy Cross pinned to his chest was a constant, glittering reminder of both his incredible achievement and the institution's profound betrayal. He was assigned to the USS Indianapolis for a time, and then, in the spring of 1943, he was transferred to a new ship, a newly commissioned escort carrier called the USS Leescombe Bay. He was now a petty officer, cook third class. It was a promotion, yes, but it was a promotion within the same segregated prison of the messman's branch. On the Leescombe Bay, he was not just a cook, he was a leader. He was Dorie Miller, the hero of Pearl Harbor, and the other black messmen on the ship looked up to him with a reverence bordering on awe. He was their champion, their symbol, the man who had shown the world what they were all capable of, if only given a chance. He likely resumed his role as a boxer, his powerful frame a familiar sight in the ship's smokers, a quiet leader who led by example. The USS Leescombe Bay was a new kind of warship, a smaller, faster aircraft carrier designed to protect convoys and provide air support for amphibious landings. In the fall of 1943, it was sent to the Central Pacific to participate in one of the bloodiest campaigns of the war, the invasion of the Gilbert Islands. The primary target was the island of Tarawa, but the Leescombe Bay's specific mission was to support the invasion of a nearby atoll, Marken. On November 20th, 1943, the invasion began. The planes from the Leescombe Bay flew missions over the islands, bombing and strafing Japanese positions. For 4 days, the ship was in constant action, a vital part of the American assault. For Dorie Miller, working in the galley below decks, the sounds of war must have been a terrifying echo of that morning at Pearl Harbor. The thunder of the ship's own guns, the jarring concussions of distant explosions, the constant, humming tension of a ship in combat. In the pre-dawn darkness of November 24th, 1943, Thanksgiving morning, the Leescombe Bay was patrolling off the coast of Marken Island. It was part of a task group, sailing in formation with other carriers and destroyers. The seas were rough, the visibility was poor. What no one knew was that a Japanese submarine, the I-175, had slipped through their destroyer screen and was stalking them in the darkness. The submarine's commander saw the silhouette of the American carrier and fired a spread of torpedoes. At 5:10 a.m., A single torpedo struck the USS Leescombe Bay on its starboard side, almost directly amidships. The point of impact was catastrophic. The torpedo hit the one place in the ship where it could do the most possible damage, the aircraft bomb storage magazine. The entire, massive store of bombs and aircraft fuel detonated in a single, apocalyptic explosion. The Leescombe Bay was ripped in half. A massive, mushrooming cloud of fire and smoke erupted into the sky, visible for miles. The explosion was so powerful that it rained debris and body parts down on the other ships in the task group, some of them hundreds of yards away. The ship, which had been a symbol of American power just seconds before, became an inferno. There was no time for damage control, no time to fight the fires, no time to even sound a proper alarm. For the men below decks, including Dorie Miller in his galley, there was no chance. The ship sank in just 23 minutes. Of the nearly 900 men on board, over 650 were killed, many of them vaporized in the initial explosion. It was one of the single deadliest losses for a carrier in the entire war. Dorie Miller, the hero who had survived the sinking of the USS West Virginia at Pearl Harbor, was gone. He was 24 years old. The man who had been denied a combat role, who had been sent back to the kitchen, had died a warrior's death after all, a casualty of the very war he had been one of the first to fight. The news of his death sent a wave of grief through Black America. He was more than just a sailor. He was their hero, their champion, the man whose courage had given them all a sense of pride and hope in the darkest days of the war. The newspapers that had fought so hard to have his story told now printed his obituary, mourning the loss of a man who represented the very best of his people. The tragic and profound irony of his life and death was not lost on them. He had been celebrated, used for propaganda, and then ultimately discarded by the very system he had so bravely defended. He had proven he was a warrior, but he had been forced to die as a cook. His death was a final, terrible indictment of the hypocrisy of a segregated military. He had been given the Navy Cross, but he had been denied the one thing he had truly earned, the right to fight and to be recognized as a full and equal American sailor. His story was over, but his legacy, the powerful symbol of his courage and the injustice he had faced, was just beginning. The death of Dorie Miller was not an end. It was a transformation. In life, he had been a reluctant hero, a quiet man thrust into the spotlight, a symbol of both American valor and American hypocrisy. But in death, he became something more. He became a legend, a permanent and powerful icon in the long, arduous struggle for racial justice in America. His story, a perfect, tragic, and inspiring epic compressed into a few short years, became a foundational text for the civil rights movement. His name became a rallying cry. Civil rights leaders, activists, and ordinary citizens invoke his memory as the ultimate argument for the desegregation of the armed forces. How could a nation continue to justify a system that would send a hero like Dorie Miller back to the kitchen? The question was unanswerable, the injustice of it too glaring to defend. His sacrifice, and the story of the Navy's subsequent betrayal, became a powerful piece of moral leverage, a debt of honor that the nation had yet to pay. While President Truman's decision to desegregate the military in 1948 was the result of many factors, the story of Dorie Miller was a constant, powerful undercurrent in the debate, a symbol of the wastefulness and the profound injustice of the old system. His legacy was also kept alive in the very institution that had so often failed him. The United States Navy, in the decades that followed the war, began a slow and difficult process of confronting its own racist past. As it moved towards a more integrated and equal future, the story of Dorie Miller was reclaimed, not as an inconvenient hero, but as an inspirational one. He became a symbol of the Navy's own highest ideals, of courage, of service, and of duty under fire. In 1973, in a powerful act of historical reckoning, the Navy commissioned a new frigate, the USS Miller. It was one of the first American warships to be named in honor of an African-American hero. The ship that bore his name was a testament to a Navy that was finally, belatedly, ready to fully honor the man it had once relegated to the galley. But the fight for his ultimate recognition, the battle that the black press had begun in 1942, was not yet over. For decades, a dedicated group of his supporters, including his surviving family members, veterans groups, and members of Congress, continued to campaign for his Navy Cross to be upgraded to the Medal of Honor. They argued, correctly, that his actions on December 7, 1941, met every single criterion for the nation's highest award for valor. He had acted with supreme courage, at great risk to his own life, above and beyond the call of duty. The fact that he had been denied the medal in 1942 was a clear and demonstrable act of racial bias. This long, quiet war for his honor continued for over half a century. And then, in the early 21st century, the momentum began to build. In 2020, the Navy's most powerful and advanced warship, a new Ford-class aircraft carrier, was officially named the USS Dorie Miller. It was a monumental and unprecedented honor. Aircraft carriers, the capital ships of the modern Navy, are almost exclusively named after presidents. To name one after an enlisted sailor, a messman from World War II, was a statement of immense power and significance. The Navy was finally acknowledging that Dorie Miller was not just a hero, but a figure of presidential importance in the history of the service. The campaign for his Medal of Honor continues to this day, a testament to the fact that the fight for historical justice is never truly over. But regardless of whether that final, official upgrade is ever made, his place in the pantheon of American heroes is secure. So, when we look back on the story of Dorie Miller, what is the final, enduring lesson? It is a story that teaches us that heroes are not defined by the roles that society assigns to them. They are defined by the choices they make in moments of crisis. Dorie Miller was told he was a cook, but when the world was coming to an end around him, he chose to be a warrior. He was told he was unfit for combat, but when the guns fell silent, his actions were the very definition of a combat hero. His story is a powerful reminder that potential lies dormant in the most unexpected of places. How many other Dorie Millers were there in that segregated military, men whose potential for heroism was never unlocked because they were never given the chance? His story is a testament to the immense, tragic wastefulness of prejudice. It does not just wound the spirit, it squanders the very talent and courage that a nation needs to survive. And finally, his life and death are a profound meditation on the nature of patriotism. He was a man who gave his last full measure of devotion to a country that did not yet fully embrace him. His patriotism was not a simple thing. It was a complex, courageous act of faith. He fought for an ideal of America, a nation of true equality and opportunity, that did not yet exist. His ultimate sacrifice was a down payment on that future promise. So the next time you see the grainy, black and white footage of the attack on Pearl Harbor, look beyond the fire and the smoke. Remember the quiet, powerful messman on the deck of the USS West Virginia. Remember the man who was trained to serve, but who chose to fight. Remember the hero who was celebrated, and then forgotten, and then finally, immortalized. Dorie Miller was more than the first hero of World War II. He was a testament to the fact that the most powerful force in any battle is not a ship or a gun, but a single human heart, filled with an unbreakable will to stand and fight for what is right. We began this story in the servants' quarters of a segregated battleship, with a man whose destiny, according to the nation he served, was to be a cook and a valet. We end it with his name emblazoned on the hull of one of the most powerful warships the world has ever known, the aircraft carrier USS Dorie Miller. The journey between those 2 points is more than just the story of one man's heroism. It is the story of America's long, painful, and unfinished struggle with itself. The legacy of Dorie Miller is a powerful and necessary testament to a simple, profound truth, that circumstances do not define character, they reveal it. The circumstances of Miller's life were designed to diminish him, to confine him to a role of subservience. But the fires of Pearl Harbor did not create his courage. They merely revealed the courage that was already there, lying dormant, waiting for a moment of crisis to call it forth. His story is a powerful reminder that heroes are not born in the spotlight. They are forged in the darkness, in the moments when all seems lost, and a choice must be made. His actions on that December morning were a spontaneous, almost instinctive, act of pure valor. But in the years that followed, his story became a calculated and powerful political weapon. The Double V campaign, the fight for victory over fascism abroad and victory over racism at home, found its perfect symbol in Dorie Miller. He was the living embodiment of the campaign's central argument. How could a nation fight a war against a master race ideology in Germany while practicing its own version of it at home? How could you celebrate the heroism of a man like Dorie Miller and then tell him that he is only fit to serve you dinner? The hypocrisy was too glaring, the injustice too obvious. His story became a moral lever that helped to pry open the closed doors of a segregated military. The final, tragic irony of his life, that he was killed in action while serving, once again, as a cook, does not diminish his legacy, it amplifies it. It serves as a permanent, heartbreaking indictment of the system he fought for. He died not as the gunner he had proven himself to be, but as the messman that the Navy's prejudice insisted he was. His death crystallized the stakes of the Double V campaign, reminding the nation that the fight for dignity and equality was, for Black Americans, a matter of life and death, both on and off the battlefield. So when we remember Dorie Miller, let us remember him in his full, complex glory. Let us remember the humble son of a sharecropper, the heavyweight boxing champion of the USS West Virginia, the quiet man who carried his dying captain from the fire. Let us remember the untrained hero who stood behind a machine gun and fought back against an empire. But let us also remember the man who was sent back to the kitchen, the hero whose full potential was never realized, the warrior who was forced to die as a servant. To tell only the first part of the story is to create a simple, feel-good myth. To tell the whole story is to engage with the difficult, uncomfortable, and ultimately, more powerful truth of the American experience. Dorie Miller's life is not a simple story of heroism. It is a complex story of heroism in the face of systemic injustice. And that is a far more important and enduring lesson. Today, his name is carried on the sea, a permanent part of the Navy he helped to change. His story is told to new generations of sailors, a reminder that courage and leadership can be found in the most unexpected of places. The fight to have his Navy Cross upgraded to the Medal of Honor continues, a final battle to secure the last measure of recognition he so clearly deserved. But his true monument is not a medal or a ship. His true monument is the very existence of an integrated American military, a military where a person's potential is no longer limited by the color of their skin. He did not live to see that world, but his courage was one of the crucial sparks that helped to ignite the fire that would eventually burn the old one down. He was the first hero of the war, and his legacy is a timeless testament to the fact that true valor cannot be segregated, cannot be silenced, and will, in the end, always find its way into the light.